What's going on, Ambitious Vet? Welcome to another episode of the Ambitious Vet Show. I'm your host, Chris Hoffman. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, surviving sales trainer, author, and award-winning entrepreneur who realized immediate transitional education expires when you desire more than just basic needs being met. On this show, we dive into the trenches with today's top subject matter experts, share inspiring transitional stories, and provide masterclasses to equip you with the realistic perspective on how to reach your potential post-military. If you haven't already, grab your whiskey, grab your cigar, or grab your notepad. Let's take some notes and give you the golden grenades you need to blow through to new levels in your life post-military.
So the talent show, I'd come out to the microphone and I'd say, our next act is blah, 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 blah. Sister Loretta was the one who probably recognized that and put me up there. And then I went through, I sang in a punk band in high school. We'll just leave that where it is. And then decided I needed to get out of Detroit because if I had stayed, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now.
Yeah.
So got away, joined the Marine Corps, put a few years in. My God, I worked with some wonderful people. In fact, I lucked out so much. Those guys I was enlisted with back in the late 80s are still my friends.
Today's show is being brought to you by Rollers. Summer has just begun in 2022, and why not let the good times roll with the next outdoor yard game? Rollers was invented by a military veteran and is a fun, new outdoor yard game that combines elements of other traditional games like bowshoe ball, bowling, and horseshoes. It's a snap to set up and easy to learn and play, but not to win. It's a game of skill with an element of chance. I would love for you guys to go check out rollers.com. It's free shipping if you enter in the discount code avnetwork. And that will be free shipping for everyone that wants to come in. Quick story with Rollers. I've played this game. I've gifted it to friends and family, and it's a backyard beach favorite for any family vacation or outdoor barbecue. I promise you. Again, it's rollers.com. Make sure you enter in discount code avnetwork when you get the chance. Take care.
It's time to get into the trenches, dig into your purpose, and fire up your life's fulfillment. The Ambitious Vet Podcast starts now.
What's going on, Ambitious Vet? We are right back inside the trenches this week with Patrick Kirchner. Patrick is the founder of Sound Attention, an award-winning professional male voiceover actor with a dedicated broadcast quality home studio. Patrick's voice is authoritative, confident, but also trustworthy, marked by a relaxed energy, intense gentleness, and seductive gravitas. I'm excited to learn more about that right there. But he's also won awards. In 2019, Voice Arts Awards finalist, 2021 Voice USA Inspiration Award winner. Patrick also has devoted 31 years to the United States Marine Corps, hoorah, including a highlight tour as a Top Gun instructor. We're excited to have him on the show, Ambitious Vet. Let's welcome Patrick. Patrick, are you there?
God, I hope my voice doesn't crack or anything and I can live up to that introduction. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, man, it's cool. This is the first time I'm like, damn, his voice is going to be potentially better than mine. And I decided as we were coming into this Zoom room here to hit record, I was just like, man, his voice is just soothing. So Ambitious Vet, just curl up next to his voice for the next 30 minutes. And, let's take this ride together. But Patrick, thanks for joining the show. Feel free to go ahead and fill the gaps inside that introduction and let us know more about who you are.
I think you hit all the highlights. That's pretty much what I've built my brand around. Just on that topic, a lot of people who get into the creative industries worry about a brand, and they worry about, coming up with a slogan and a tagline and a company name and all that stuff. And I made those mistakes when I first started the company. But your brand is, now I can't remember who said it. The Amazon guy. What's his name?
Jeff Bezos?
Bezos.
Yeah,
Bezos says
Bezos.
your brand is what people say when you walk out of the room.
Hmm.
So when you're coming up with a brand, your brand has to reflect your personality. And it's just like any organization in the military. The organization starts to take on the kind of the personality of its leadership. And it's not just the commander alone. It's the leadership team and how that group dynamic works. And the group dynamic's important.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for breaking that down. And I love that idea of like, hey, what are people saying? What's your reputation whenever you walk away? So 31 years in the Marine Corps, what did you retire as, Patrick?
I went in as a private, got picked up for a commissioning program, retired as a lieutenant colonel.
Wow. Wow. So, being obviously a lieutenant colonel, you've got to figure out how to be authoritarian, right? Have that firmness in your voice, but you also got to balance stuff. And I know that we were balance other tonalities, right? Like trustworthy, gentleness. And, I know that we were talking about inside the pre-interview, how tough that must have been to balance. Maybe so, maybe not. But from what I can tell from our audience of ambitious vets, they're wanting to learn more about how can they lead. Does tonality matter? How do we improve our interpersonal skills? And it sounds like you've had the magic sauce of spending 31 years in the United States Marine Corps and learning how to not really lose your core identity. In this case, your voice. How could you potentially kind of map that out for an ambitious vet that's listening to this right now? That's like, hey, how do I find my identity as far as interpersonal skills and tonality of my voice? And does that matter?
It's a very introspective thing. I know a lot of people who hate the sound of their own voice. And I think that's a wonderful thing because they pay me to speak for them, right?
Yeah.
My mom says I have a nice voice, which is a funny thing in the voiceover community because everybody says that, right? And it's about 5% voice and it's about 95% acting. And that 95% acting is different. There's different schools of acting. I am not a formally trained actor. I've taken a lot of coaching and derived a lot of stuff. I'll just lead out with that. I did not go to Juilliard. Acting is finding the essence of the character and identifying with it and then applying your own life experiences to what that character is going through and being believable. And if you try to do an imitation of the character or the character's supposed to sound angry, and sound is a great word for it, right? Because if you sound angry, you're not really convincingly angry. If you sound happy, you're not convincingly happy. If you try to sound authoritative and stand up in front of a group of people and tell them your business in an authoritative manner, you're not going to be convincing or believable. So the hardest thing to do, I think, maybe it's easy for some people, is to just be yourself and be honest. And your friends know who the hell you are. Your family knows who you are. And if you try to put up a front, they're going to see right through it. And while we were on the branding thing, for me, one of the most terrifying things to do was to find 30 close friends and family. So not other voice actors, but people who know me and have known me for a long time, and send them it was like a 10, 15-minute survey. Tell me what you think about me. And I'm like, well, what are they going to say? Well, guess what? When I got it back, there were no surprises. And anything I was trying to project or put up, they see right through that. And that's really, how do you lead Marines? Well, know your business and be there for them, right? And if you're honest about that, they'll recognize it. And if you try to put on this front of being courageous or being authoritative, they're going to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lance Corporal's got a great bullshit detector in their nose.
That's true. Yeah, no, I love the idea of getting feedback from your sphere of influence. Like, what do you think of me? And I've done it a couple of times in my life, and it's funny because my core family was just like, you come off like a preacher sometimes. I'm just like, you're always preaching at us. So it's just like, ambitious vet, definitely finding a way to understand how people are talking about you when you're not there listening. Everyone has a filter they listen to you from too, right? What are their immediate thoughts and feelings when they're around you, and understand that, right? And get a consensus around that, so you kind of know what your branding already is. Great points. So Patrick, also, when did you figure out that you were going to be like a voiceover actor, man? From a Marine, 31 years. When did you find out that, like, damn, my voice is sexy, right?
Somewhere around the tender age of 8 or 9. I started being the guy in grade school who would be the MC for the Christmas show, the spring show, the talent show. I'd come out to the microphone and I'd say, our next act is blah, 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 blah. Sister Loretta was the one who probably recognized that and put me up there. And then and I went through, I sang in a punk band in high school. We'll just leave that where it is. And then decided I needed to get out of Detroit because if I had stayed, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now.
Yeah.
So got away, joined the Marine Corps, put a few years in. My God, I worked with some wonderful people. In fact, I lucked out so much. Those guys I was enlisted with back in the late 80s are still my friends. 18 of them showed up at my change of command ceremony a decade ago.
Wow.
And it's just wonderful. And we try to get together at least once a year. And they all know me. They all helped with the brand. And they know who the hell I am. So I enlisted. Lou Helena walks into the shop one day. I was a jet engine mechanic on Harriers. Lou Helena walks into the shop one day, goes, "Well, I just put my MESEP package in." I go, "MESEP, what's that?" And so I went in, and I'm going to put my MESEP package in. Didn't get it the first year, got it the next year. Well, somewhere in that time frame, Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out. I grew up watching cartoons just like everybody else. And I remember seeing it and just going, holy crap, this is still a thing. I could do that. And I joked for years. So I get to college, and in the first semester, I took a theater voice class to learn more about the function of the voice and for the purpose of eventually doing voiceover. I still have the notebook from the class, and item number 1, we had the first week of class, we had to list the reasons why we're there. And reason number 1 was to have a lucrative career in voiceover. After I retired.
Yeah.
And then to develop that strong command voice. That was a goal. To lose the Michigan nasality, which I can still dial up if I need to. Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
And then I graduate. I'm at the basic school, and this lieutenant is assigned to arrange a change of command ceremony for general, and I can't think of his name right now. And she pulls us all into like a stairwell for you civilians. And there's like 4 of us, and she says, "Okay, read the script." And everyone's like, "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen." And I just let loose with this, "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the change of command ceremony." And she's like, "It's you." So we're at the ceremony, and there's a wonderful thing to this, by the way. We're at the ceremony. I'm standing there at the podium and doing the thing, and the major who's in charge of the whole thing goes, "Lieutenant, now that they've heard you, you're gonna narrate every change of command, every promotion, every retirement. Hell, you're probably gonna narrate your own retirement ceremony." And I did.
Yeah.
And the real magic to it is I only stood and marched one other time, and that was when I was in command. There was a group change of command ceremony, and I had to be out there marching. But every other time, I'm behind the mic and moving things along and sipping water, and it's a lot better than standing in the sun.
Yeah, soothing people with your voice. So was that before you did theater class or afterwards? Give us the timeline on that. As you were getting chosen to kind of speak at the change of command ceremonies and stuff like that.
I had done the theater class in college. That would have been fall of '90 when I took that.
Got it.
In '93, I'm commissioned, and I'm and then I get pulled to all these ceremonies.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great.
Great because you can add to the environment of the room, right? Your voice can carry the ceremony, and if your voice isn't right for the ceremony, you do something else.
Yeah. And I'm sure it probably took you some time to kind of identify your voice, because even like, and I'll speak in the context of podcasting, for example. I mean, I've been doing this for 4 years, right? And it wasn't until like 2.5 years of doing this where like listeners were just like, okay, now you're starting to find your voice. We can tell. And I didn't know what that meant, because I just kept doing the episodes, just try to have some meaningful conversations. But to your point, I think people start realizing whenever you start kind of like finding your voice, you're not trying too hard. You know what I mean? Or, just whatever it may be, not trying enough, not finding that neutral that just kind of lands authentic.
We're having a conversation right here. The problem with most voice actors when they get started, and a lot of podcasters too, and you can hear it, is as soon as they press record, there was an old sitcom TV show, and the guy's like, "I'll relax," and then the red light comes on and he freezes, right? You hear podcasters who, as soon as the mic's on, they get this voice, and you see them crane their head to the microphone. Yeah, I'm speaking into a microphone now. Nobody wants that.
Yeah. No, I get that. And it's a journey. It's definitely a growth journey too, right? Of just improving and getting better every single time. So you hit 31 years of the United States Marine Corps, right? You retire. What's the transition like, becoming and emerging yourself inside the voiceover industry?
Well, I went on a Sunday and I picked up my DD-214 because that's the day I could pick it up. That fell on the day of the week, and I got on my Harley and I blasted the Who's "I'm Free," and I rode off the base, and then the following Tuesday I had a video interview with one of the big three automakers to kind of follow this. I had been doing strategic foresight the last decade, so I was a trained, educated, professional futurist. Went through the program at the University of Houston. I did a tour in the Pentagon where we looked at the deep future, and that's what I figured. If I wasn't doing this, I'd be doing foresight, because when I start talking about the future and I'm around, surrounded by people that are smarter than me, which I always love, because I learn so much from them. I'm going to go do this for one of the big three manufacturers because their head guy was going to retire, so I was going to go on the team. Go through all 4 interviews, and then at the end of the 4th interview, the guy goes, "All right, well, I think we're good here." And he goes, "You got any questions?" I said, "Yeah, if you guys would expect me to relocate up to Detroit, how quickly would you expect that to happen?" And I got, "Well, we need to have the team in place by the end of the month, and we can't onboard anybody till next month. So They went with an internal hire. But HR was happy because they interviewed a vet. How about that?
They always got their metrics, man.
Yeah.
They always got them.
Yeah, and I wish I'd have known that going in. So I'm sitting on the couch next to my wife and kind of bummed out about it. And by the way, one thing I omitted, anytime anyone asked me, so Pat, what are you going to do when you get out of the Marine Corps? I'd say, I'm going to do cartoon voiceovers, just jokingly. And my wife goes, you've talked about voiceover as long as I've known you, and I've got a coupon for a voiceover seminar. Why don't you go check it out? And I did, and I had her full support to follow on. Unfortunately, what they gave me did not nearly enough prepare me for voiceover, right? Six weeks of training and a poorly produced demo reel when I still really don't know what I'm doing at that point was not a good way to get started. So I wrote a series of LinkedIn articles and published them at that point on how to get started without losing your shirt. Because there's a lot more to this than just having a nice voice, like we said before. It's 5% a nice voice, 95% acting, and another 50% running a small business. And the reason I didn't want to become a government contractor was because I never wanted to do business development. No, BD. Guess what I have to do every day now? BD.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, but it does, it's kind of like a necessary evil, right? And as you spend more time in the industry and you build the relationships, things start becoming easier and the tide kind of changes in your direction. Your pendulum kind of swings. I find that the more you're in the industry, you build the relationships, you find out who's who and find your way at the big boy table. And Patrick, I mean, from what I can tell, everyone in the voiceover industry. The guy that does our intro and outro, Jim McCarthy, who did the Cardone Zone, ambitious vet, I was just like, yeah, this is the guy that did our voiceover a few years back. He's like, oh yeah, I know him. He's a great dude. And I'm just like, what? That's when this person you're speaking to has become, an expert in their field. So what have you learned that you could pass on to an ambitious vet that's listening to this right now, this, wanting to get inside the industry, or if there's a small business or a podcaster that's listening to this, an aspiring thought leader that's looking for a quality veteran ran voiceover talent, what could you share for them that you've learned inside the industry or market so they could be like, hey, yeah, I need that?
I think you hit on it a minute ago. It's in any business, hell, even in the military, it's all about relationships. And networking's a bad word. It's about making friends. The depth of that friendship varies from person to person. But my goal when I tell my clients this when I first get on a Zoom or get on the phone with them and we talk about a project. And I give them my terms and what my rates are and what my pickup fee is. Pickups are going back and making corrections, maybe to a delivery or mispronounce the client's name. That's always a fun one to. That's not how the client says it. Okay, that's what's on their website. I can fix that too. But those relationships, I tell them that my job is to make them successful for their clients. If they're the terminal client, the ultimate person who I'm doing this ad for, my job is to make their listeners happy. My job is to make their customers want to buy the product. And if the way I'm telling their story doesn't do that, I will happily steer them towards one of my colleagues. I've got wonderful people. It's a great community. Just had one yesterday for there's a PSA coming out for, this isn't violating an NDA. No, it's not. There's a PSA about to come out for the national parks by LL Bean, and a woman I know booked it. Well, I had auditioned for this a couple weeks ago, and I just thought it was wonderful. Megan, you booked that? That's awesome. I auditioned for that too. And there's no tinge of jealousy that someone else booked the project because there's plenty of work. There'll be plenty of work tomorrow. And we all know each other. And I think we talked about this in the pre-interview, and that's that there are a few pricks in the industry. They don't tend to stick around very long.
Yeah.
Because they don't get along. They're not we're missing. I spent 31 years competing. We're missing that tinge of utter competition to to undermine the next guy so that you get the job.
Yeah. No, I loved when you shared that around the industry and how collaborative it is. I remember even when I was looking for a voiceover talent for the podcast, I was like, I'm looking for a gritty voice. And I was getting in the side of like, podcast movements, a big podcasting Facebook group and other different groups to just be like, hey, I'm looking for a voiceover talent. I need a gritty voice because we got this resilience podcast, right? Whatever. But, other voiceover talent was just like, I have kind of a softer tone, but I would go to this person. And I just went through the thread of the comments and I was just like, who's the most popular person all these people are recommending? And it was the guy I chose. Looking back, I'm just like, I wish I would have known Patrick because I love this trustworthy voice. I love this, I want to cuddle with your voice, but also Ambitious Vet. I'm looking at his website, soundattention.com, and he has some amazing portfolio of work inside the commercial, automotive, corporate, e-learning, explainer video space, just all kinds of different industry he's done portfolio work for. But Patrick, I would ask you, like, what's your favorite industry? If you had one.
Boy. So which one pays the most? I just finished my third audiobook. And I have to say, I love telling the story in the audiobook world. It comes out first week of August, or August 11th, 9th or 11th, I think it comes out. It's called Always Faithful. It's about it's a true story about a Marine getting his Afghan interpreter and family out when Kabul fell last year, and the Taliban took back over. Absolutely amazing story. I love telling it. I actually share that with another narrator who does the interpreter's voice, and the chapters alternate. But audiobooks don't pay very well. Corporate pays really well. E-learning pays pretty well too. And one of the reasons I do e-learning is because I suffered through so much bad e-learning throughout my career that I wanted to be part of the solution to that problem.
I never thought about that. You just bring up a good point. Back in doing e-learning stuff, transitioning out, going through like business classes and stuff like that through organizations I'm not going to mention. But I heard the voices and it was just, like it would turn you off. You check out. You don't even pay attention to the content because of the voice. So that does matter. That does matter.
Turn the volume down and set up the drinky bird to hit the enter key on the keyboard.
That's it. Or maybe it was just this Marine's comprehension level. Sometimes it isn't the highest. I had a low ASVAB score too, but I got in. No, I want to kind of tee this up to the last segment of the show, right? We want to move into the last golden grenade of the show, and then we'll give the ambitious vet that's listening to this right now a call to action to go figure out more around what you're doing, Patrick. But this question is what we ask every episode, or we at least try to with the time that we have. But there's an ambitious vet that's inside the trenches of life, and what we're consistently learning is more about our audience. But there's a couple veterans, in other words, one that's still in the uniform, that's an aspiring, has big ambitions getting out of the uniform, right? But they don't know what's about to hit them. But there's also another veteran that's been out of the uniform for a while, and I've realized that basic immediate education like career readiness, healthcare, benefits, all that stuff is important, but it has a shelf life, and they're missing, in other words, that sense of satisfaction, that fulfillment, that stuff that just had us be wired like we were in the military, the passion, right? So what would be one last or a couple golden grenades that you'd like to leave for the ambitious vet that's listening right now?
So they have to figure out really what they love doing. Do they love leading people? Do they love interacting? Do they love teaching? Do they love telling stories? I'm doing this because I love telling stories, whether it's my story or someone else's. And I wanted to become better at it. You know, the reason I really ultimately became an officer was because I wanted to learn leadership. I wanted to learn leadership skills, and continue to hone and develop those. And ultimately, you know, there's art and science to it. Learned all the science early on, didn't quite have the touch on the art. So I think it's important for all of us, for any human being, to focus on that humanity side of it, right? On those interpersonal relationships, on how you deal with people, how you treat people, and do what you love to do. Find out what gives you great joy in your life. If you like woodworking, you can do something. You can fire up a woodworking business if you have the wherewithal to pursue that route, right? Part of it's, you got to put food on the table. That's first and foremost. You need to feed your family, take care of them. If you have those obligations, it makes it a little harder to move on to what you really want to do, but never lose sight of that. What does playing music give you joy? Well, keep playing music. It's part of you. It's part of your life, and don't be afraid to share that with people.
It's awesome. It's great. And I love the subtlety of didn't, focus on the art of the thing. And I think that's important to kind of notice. Patrick, where can an ambitious vet go to learn more about you and what you're doing at Sound Attention?
You can go to my website, soundattention.com, one word. If Google splits it into two words, put it back together. You don't want to hear the Army bugler play Sound Attention. I give my wife credit for naming the company, though. We were sorting through names, and she threw that out, because when I narrate a parade ceremony, that's what happens at the beginning. The adjutant yells Sound Attention. So you can go to that website. My demo clips are on there. You can email me at pat@soundattention.com also.
Perfect. Well, Patrick, I just want to say thank you, man, for joining the show. Being a guy that served in the Marine Corps for 31 years to, figuring out who you were going to be post-military while you were serving. That's an incredible story. And how you just never looked back, even though you had a discount coupon ticket for a seminar that, you know what I mean?
Not to be so valuable.
I know, right? It's everything, my precious. Oh, this is my next opportunity. But, you use that and you built off of it. And from what I can see, you're leading the way for the rest of the military community to really thrive in an industry that sometimes we forget about, but is so important now with this new world that we're entering into. So thanks for joining the show.
Thank you for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
The Ambitious Vet is available on all popular podcast platforms. Go to vettrainingcoaching.com to subscribe, rate, and share with fellow vets.
Today's show is going to be brought to you by Rollers. Summer has just begun in 2022, and why not let the good times roll with the next great outdoor game? Rollers was invented by a military veteran and is a fun, new outdoor yard game that combines elements of other traditional games like bocce ball, bowling, and horseshoes. It's a snap to set up, easy to learn and play, but not to win. It's a game of skill with an element of chance. Quick story, Ambitious Vet. I've used this game countless of times to just entertain friends and family and even some in-laws that you just have to figure out a way to have fun with. And also just gifted it with friends and family. And this continues to be one of the most fan favorite games that you pull out whenever it's summertime. And I just encourage you to go check out rollers.com. Once you get to checkout, enter in code avnetwork. And then from there, you'll get free shipping. Again, that's rollers.com. Enter in discount code avnetwork at checkout and get free shipping today.